Hi everyone, Dave here, and welcome to this week's Multiiple-Joygasm. Now this week's the first video version of Multiiple-Joygasm. If you're not familiar with the concept, it's just me getting together with you guys and talking about something that I love about video games and seeing what you guys think. So what I've decided to do this week is potentially a hot topic, and that's violence in video games, so let's have a look. Now for me this goes back to games like Sunset Riders, Golden Axe and Streets of Rage on the Mega Drive, which was actually the first console that I ever had. And while they may not be violent compared to games today like The Last of Us or even Gears of War, there's no denying that they had that kind of hard-hitting visceral appeal. In fact, Streets of Rage 2 is still one of my all-time favourite games. I think the first truly violent video game I ever played was actually on the Mega Drive, Mortal Kombat 2. Now I must have been about 8 when that came out, and probably after 5-6 weeks of moaning, my mum finally bought me it. Now I loved that game, I played it to death, everything about it amazed me. The range of characters that were all crazy, the kind of realistic for the time graphics, the violence, the hard hitting combos, and of course the blood and the fatalities. I just couldn't put it down.
Finish him.
So, the next generation rolled round and I picked myself up a PlayStation, and on there I started playing games like Resident Evil, Doom and Duke Nukem. And while they were violent and bloody, there was one game that really took it to the next level, and that was called Thrill Kill. Now if you've never played this game, it was a 4-player beat 'em up in the same vein as Mortal Kombat, and then it had crazy characters, buckets of gore, and of course fatalities. More interestingly, it was never actually released or finished, so in order to get a copy, you had to buy a knockoff from somewhere and also get your PlayStation chipped.
Begin.
So, a new generation rolled around again, and funnily enough I picked myself up a PlayStation 2. Now on the PlayStation 2, the most obvious example of violence I think would be the Grand Theft Auto series, but I don't really want to talk about that today. There was another game that really appealed to me and is still one of my favourites to this day, and that game is Manhunt. Now in Manhunt you play as a death row convict, secretly saved from execution and forced to kill gang members at the behest of a mysterious director that whispered instructions to you via an earpiece during game.
Go on.
I'll be frank with you. We set that jump up to see if you had what it takes to be our leading man. A little audition, if you will.
Manhunt really pushed the boundaries of what was acceptable in a game at the time, and it was one of the first games where the excessive beatings, shootings, stranglings, suffocations and mutilations really made me feel uncomfortable. Don't let that description put you off though. At its core, Manhunt is a fantastic game. It's probably one of the best stealth action games that I've ever played, so do yourself a favour and pick it up.
You're just prolonging the inevitable, you punk!
So, now we come back to this generation, the Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 3, with games like Anarchy Reigns and the Gears of War series like I mentioned before. But there's one true king for this generation when it comes to violence for me, and that game is Dead Rising 2. So, as you might have guessed by now, Dead Rising 2 is another one of my all-time favourites. It combines everything: silly violence, excessive gore and ridiculous weapons, with things like 2 chainsaws duct taped to a paddle. Not only that, but it did a great job of making you laugh in spite of the violence going on around you.
That's a beauty.
At its very core, Dead Rising 2 is probably the best hack and slash game of this generation, and if you haven't picked it up yet, then either go and buy it or download it. Either way, play it. Well, that's my Multiiple-Joygasm for this week. Hope you enjoyed it. If there's any games you think I haven't covered, anything that you remember being particularly violent or fun, remember to mention it in the comments section, and we'll see you next time. Bye. Oh yeah, I almost forgot. If you haven't checked out the latest Multiplayer episode, then either click on the link or check out the rest of the YouTube page, but make sure to check it out, it's pretty good. Well, see you later.